Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from whichever part of the world that you're watching from. And welcome to this World Water Week's talk show, which will be all about collective action for water access, brought to you today by Liquid IV. Now, my name is Haji Yacoubi, and I have the honor of being your moderator for these upcoming 20 minutes, not the least of which because I'm very excited about the topic that we'll be diving into. So today's session is all about further exploring Liquid IV's Confluence program, which accelerates water access by bringing solutions together, by driving collective action. So we'll discuss what that collaboration looks like, what sort of initiatives are a part of the Confluence program, and how can we make sure that innovative solutions can be driven forward. That and much more will be discussed. So first of all, a very big thank you to you for tuning in with us, whether that's online, from home, from work, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to this session, and also to everybody that's here in the room with us in Stockholm. We're very happy to have you here. Now, I am very, very excited about the stellar panel that I am joined with today that will help to sort of guide us through the topic that we have. So let me start by giving a very warm welcome, first of all, to Alexandra Campbell-Ferrari. You are the Executive Director of the Center for Water Security and Cooperation. Very warm welcome to you.
Thank you.
Then we are also joined here on my right by George McGraw. You are the founder and CEO of DigDeep. Nice to have you with us as well. And last but definitely not least, we have Jace Newton, Director of Impact at Liquid IV. Welcome.
Thank you.
Now, it's so good to have all of you here with us. I mentioned it in the introduction. We're going to be diving deeper into the Confluence program. But naturally, Jace, maybe I can look at you because it would be good to sort of get a bit of an understanding. What is the Confluence program exactly? And also, why did Liquid IV decide to create it?
Very good, very good. Thank you, Hajar. We're very happy to be here at World Water Week. Let me start by talking about Liquid IV a bit first. Liquid IV is a functional hydration company, and our product is an electrolyte drink mix that's formulated for more efficient hydration. Now, because our product is designed to be used with clean water, it was natural that we gravitated toward clean water access for our area of impact. At Liquid IV, we believe, and I think everyone here at World Water Week believes, that access to clean water is a basic human right. And at Liquid IV, we are committed to expanding equitable access to clean water for communities in need. Now, there are a lot of ways that we pursue this. We have a goal of expanding access for 2 million people over the next 3 years. And one of the ways that we are trying to achieve this goal is through our Confluence program. Now, Confluence is a platform. It involves grant making, it involves convening, and it involves a suite of non-financial support resources that we apply to our 10 member organizations, 2 of which are here with me today. The thesis behind Confluence is that collective action can help drive solutions more effectively and in an accelerated way. By bringing together all of our partner organizations, they are able to collaborate and to leverage their strengths and their capabilities in a way that helps them further their goals better than if they worked alone. So we're very happy to have 2 of our esteemed partners here today, and hopefully we can start a discussion about collective action and spur some other folks here to pursue this course.
Yeah. That's amazing. And indeed, we're very happy that we can sort of also bring examples to the stage. I'd say let's just start right off by doing that. Let's get a bit of a general understanding of the sort of programs that you're representing here today. Alexander, if I can start with you. I am looking at your necklace, and I said this to you just now when we met. It's the coolest one I've seen. But I'm not just mentioning it for any reason, because you are indeed, you're one of the partners that's a part of the Confluence program. And a part of that, the initiative that you're involved with is the Water Equity Legal Fellowship. Now, I would have guessed when I saw the necklace that was what you represented, but can you tell us a little bit more about what it is? And I'm also specifically curious to hear how has, being a part of Confluence sort of leveraged the initiative, the fellowship, even more, if you will.
Sure. So I'm a very proud water lawyer, hence the necklace.
Yeah.
And I'm here to always recruit people to either care about the law or to become a water lawyer. That's, I mean, if you've met me, that's really all I talk about.
Yeah.
And so the Water Equity Legal Fellowship actually very organically developed between a colleague of ours, We the People of Detroit, based in Detroit, Michigan, and ourselves. And we were working together and had been working together for a number of years on issues relating to strengthening the state and local laws around water access, specifically water affordability and water assistance in the city of Detroit. And so what we realized is through our program and our trying to identify and build the next generation of water lawyers, and they're needing more water law folks to understand what they do, right? Like not just be a traditional lawyer, but listen and hear and work with them in partnership to develop these laws together and to hear what they wanted, to hear from the community what they wanted and be able to reflect that in the laws that then go on to represent them for years.
Yeah.
And so we created this idea to build that next generation of water lawyers focused in Michigan. So taking only from Michigan law schools and saying, we want you to become a water lawyer. So we're going to create this really unique experience to work with an organization like myself that works internationally and in the US, and to work with a very locally based community group, and to merge our expertises, our life stories, our experiences, and our passions to then build this new generation of water lawyers. And so that's what we've done. We've had our first fellow. They are excited and eager to continue on. So they're pursuing work in environmental justice. They'll be going into their third year and doing a clinic related to that. And then we're looking to hire our next group of fellows.
Yeah.
So.
That is amazing, and also when you start to think about sort of the long-term impact that can have, right? You're sort of like bringing in this sort of like paradigm shift also when it comes to law, indeed, but then also like all the people that will be entering into this field. I always say, I mean, it's a common saying. I didn't make it up, but like the fact that we overestimate what we can do on the short term and we underestimate what we can do on the long term. And this is one of those prime examples where you don't underestimate what you can do on the long term if you look at the longevity of the impact that you can have here. It's amazing. We'll be talking about that in a little bit even more. But before we do, George, I'd love to hear more from you as well. I mean, from DigDeep's perspective, could you share a little bit more about the project that you were involved with that's a part of Confluence?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at this conference, and I think around the world, when most people think of places without running water, they never think of the US. But actually, we have a few million people in the US who don't have a tap or a toilet at home and who maybe walk outside their house and if they're lucky, buy some water at the store, or maybe pull it out of a livestock pond or a mine shaft. Our Confluence partnership has been focused on the Appalachia Water Project. Appalachia is a region of the U.S. That is parts of Kentucky, West Virginia, Virginia. And there, we've been collaborating with Liquid I.V. and with partners to get people running water on the ground.
Nice.
Mostly what we've been doing is collaborating with local public utility districts, and they pull in state and federal funds to build these new water systems, which are desperately needed because folks used to rely on coal companies to get their running water. Those coal companies left a long time ago, the systems crumbled, and people have been without water. But when you use state or federal funds, because of the laws that are in place, you're really restricted about how you can use them, and you can't use them to build anything on private property. So often the water will pass straight through someone's front yard or close to their house, and they have no way to hook into it. So we partner with those utilities and with those communities and get those houses sort of like up to snuff, so they can take that water, replace plumbing units or fixtures, and then bring that water into the house. And it makes a tremendous impact on someone's daily life.
I can imagine. I mean, could you share more about that, because it's really about such a basic, fundamental livelihood. Do you have like any stories you can share of how it's impacted people?
Yeah, actually on the project that we just finished with Liquid I.V. in this little town called Premier, which is in McDowell County, West Virginia, I was visiting with this woman named Rosa Runyon, and her husband was a coal miner, worked his whole life in the coal mines. His his father did the same thing, and his grandfather. But they moved to this area without running water, and so he ran a hose out of the back of their yard 300 feet up the side of a mountain into an old mine shaft, and that's where he pulled their drinking water out of.
Really? Oh my God.
Yeah, which is, pretty ingenious, also very dangerous, because you don't know what's in that water. Rosa, is from the area, grew up there, raised 8 kids in that house, but, now in her late 70s, her husband had passed away, and she was, on the brink of having to figure out, like, how do I leave my house? How do I move? Because this needs constant attention. I can't climb those 300 feet up the mountain to fix it. And she had this brand new water main running right through her street. So we were able to hook her in, and that collaboration that Confluence created between us and the public service districts and Rosa, it culminated actually last year with a visit from the EPA administrator. And we can take projects like that and show our federal partners how to change the laws and policies that allow these things to take place. And so it's been a really wild ride, but a really impactful one.
Yeah, yeah, but amazing to hear that impact. I don't know, Jace, if you sort of hear almost the success stories here. How does that sort of how do you reflect on
Well, I mean, of course, we love to hear it, and we'd love for our consumers to hear more about the work that they're helping to enable when they support our product. We have seen a lot of different ways that brands and companies get involved with impact work, and even with water work specifically. But oftentimes it's driven by an agenda just to produce results. But we wanted to see more than just results. We wanted to see impact. And so for us, by providing our partners with unrestricted funding, that was really the key to unlocking their creativity and their specific expertise in their issue areas so that they could drive the solutions instead of us with some idea of what we think we want to see. Let's let the experts work. So we love to hear these stories.
Yeah, yeah, and you mentioned unrestricted funding, George. Maybe if you could just briefly how does that the availability of unrestricted funding, how has that sort of helped you accelerate your project?
Well, I mean, first of all, it is really rare, especially for corporations and corporate foundations. They are usually really tied to these very sort of calculated goals, and they have exactly an idea of where they want that money to go and what they want it to accomplish. But the U.S. has never had its own WASH organization before. There are hundreds of WASH organizations based in the U.S. helping people in places like India or Latin America or Sub-Saharan Africa. But we're the first based in the U.S. helping Americans, and I think in that way, sort of everything we do is an experiment. Everything we do is new and novel, and there's a lot of sort of innovation and entrepreneurship that has to happen. And so when we go out to our funding partners, we can't always say to them, here's exactly what this is going to look like for the next couple of years.
Yeah.
I mean, in Malawi, they've been doing it for 60 years. In the U.S., not so much. So, funding like this allows us to be really nimble, to experiment, to see what works, to pivot when we need to.
Yeah.
Recently, our team on the Navajo Water Project, who bring running water to folks on the Navajo Nation, a reservation in the Southwest, they were visiting their counterparts in Appalachia, and they were trying to get water up a mountain where there was just no way to get this water system because of the pressure needed up the mountain.
Right.
And so the Navajo folks were like, well, let's just use our system. We put these off-grid cisterns underground, and we fill them, and we can use solar power to pump them into the house, and people get running water. And the Appalachia folks were like, well, we can't get a truck up this hill, full of water. There's no way.
Yeah.
So together they collaborated and they built a rainwater system. They tripled the size of the system, put advanced filtration in it, and they've been piloting these 15 systems this year to do that. And that wouldn't have been possible if I had to go back to the corporation and say, well, the money you gave us, actually, it's not going to work where we thought it was going to work.
Especially in untethered theory, so it says, I mean, you give the example of you guys being the first one to sort of focus on WASH, and it specifically sort of also helps leverage that. Thanks for sharing that also. Alexandra, if I can go to you next. I mean, Jace, you so eloquently said we need to not just go for results, but go beyond it, go for impact. How do you sort of look at the specific impact that you've been able to have also because of the the sort of collectiveness and the collaboration with Confluence in that sense?
Sure. I mean, I can think of 3 examples right off the bat. So the first one is just being able to work with new partners that we have relationships with, but we haven't really worked with before. Yeah. So I think that's just top of mind. I think second is being able to dive into projects that are new. So for example, we had an opportunity to work with a group of mayors in the Mississippi River to explore the idea of developing a Mississippi River Compact. And we'd been working with this group for 6-7 years, but the political will hadn't been there. And now we're moving forward on that.
Oh, wow.
And it was because of Liquid I.V's funding that we were able to pursue that the second it became of interest to them. And so now in September, we'll be exploring that. We're looking at ways that the mayors themselves can actually take the lead in developing some kind of collaborative mechanism for the Mississippi River. And this is something that's never been done before, right? The Mississippi River, especially in the States, right? We talk a lot about transboundary water,
Yeah.
and we talk about that internationally, but similar in the US context, right? We're not really creative with our laws, especially in that transboundary, similar regional context.
Right.
And so the Mississippi River is this incredible river that we've really underprotected. And so we have this amazing opportunity that is here because the mayor said, look, we are seeing the impact of water quality, poor water quality, of saltwater intrusion. I mean,
Right.
I'm talked to the mayor of Gretna who said, I feared that our groundwater wells would be impacted by saltwater, that my community of several thousand people would not have drinking water. And
Right.
not just today, but in the future. That we'd have to look at desalination, which we can't afford, that we'd have to look at getting water from another community. And multiple communities in that area feared that not that long ago.
Yeah.
And so being able to work just that quickly when the political will and the timing is right to jump on that is just so immense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, when I hear you speak of that, because then I'm just thinking, okay, we need more of this. Because this, I mean, when I hear your stories, when I hear sort of what it's enabling, that it's even encouraging a certain type of courageous sort of initiativeness that the both of you have, and I mean, all three of you have. From that perspective, what are some of the key lessons learned when it comes to sort of collaboration grants? What are things that we can improve in that sense?
I'm listening.
And it doesn't have to be in this context specifically, but I think broadly there are a lot of collaboration grants. But I mean, you have experience working with more than just this one, right? But what are some of the most important things that you'd say we'd need to improve there?
Honestly, number one is flexibility. They have just been so flexible. They said, here, who do you want to collaborate with? How do you want to collaborate? And on what timeline?
Yeah.
I mean, you just need the freedom and flexibility sometimes. And it's not because you don't know what you're doing, but it's just as George said, right? You have to jump in an opportunity. Things change drastically.
Yeah.
You have to be adaptive. The world is adapting around you, and the world doesn't stop moving just because you have a project going on. And so if you can't adapt to that, you're stuck. And so you can't really innovate. You can't try new things. You can't say, oh, actually, we need this partner on board, or we need this to change.
Yeah.
And so having that flexibility, I mean, our timelines have changed, our ideas have changed, everything has changed.
Yeah.
And they're just like, okay, just let us know what you need.
Yeah, but that's
Nothing, no pushback, nothing.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, that's exciting. Like, tell us what has changed. Like, we want to know about that.
That's good.
Kind of like the shared excitement is great.
I love that, honestly. And as you said, everything's constantly changing. And if anything, you don't survive without changing.
No.
Anything that remains rigid and still doesn't, really.
Actually, the law is a really good example of that. The law isn't changing.
So it's
Not to make it about law again, but I can't help. When you talk
I
about
love
change,
it.
right,
No.
the law doesn't change,
Yeah.
and it's an inflexible thing. And so
Yeah.
that's the beauty, is that because everything is changing, you've got to be flexible. You've got to be
True.
ready for that.
I love that. No, I love that comparison. I'm happy you cycled it in, as we would say in the Netherlands, cycle things in. Either way, that already almost brings us to the end of this talk show, but not before I want to ask you this final thing. I mean, we're here together in Stockholm, and if you're watching online, you're also here in spirit, in person with us. But everybody that's here present sort of also is an embodiment of the global water community, if you will. Each of us has a role to play also in order to make sure that we, accelerate the action that is needed to gain water security. If there's like one main takeaway, one message that you hope people walk away with after this session, what would it be? If you could briefly perhaps share. George, would you like to go first?
Yeah, mine is very simple, and it's a lesson I had to learn myself the hard way. If you care about water, if you care about these issues, you also have to care enough to look in your own backyard.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Alexandra?
Well, so two things. I mean, one is the law matters, and it's not sexy, and it takes a really long time to change, but you have to focus. I mean, it's the rule book. It's the rule book for everything that we do, and if we don't have it, we're not going to get the change. And I think second is that we have not progressed enough. Not everybody has water, and that's not okay. And we're not willing to say that. I mean, it's 2024, not everybody has access to water.
Yeah.
That is not acceptable, and we need to be more willing to say that and say, we've got to invest more in this.
Yeah.
All of our money should be going into that, because that is the basic, just human right that we should all have access to.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes me think of the story you shared, George, where you were like, typically we tend to think of like this global north to global south perspective, but then indeed do we, as you said, look in our own backyard, and are we able to sort of be open about that and share that? Jace, any final words?
Yeah, just that as a funder, I believe that it is our responsibility to invest in the institutional development of our partners. It's not enough just to give them money and say, go implement this program and then send me the results. These are people and they are full of expertise and skills and knowledge. And if we don't invest in their institutional development, the burnout rate in the nonprofit world is astronomically high. And we want to keep that knowledge in these organizations so they can achieve the objectives that they've set out. So it is our responsibility to do that, and I'm very happy to.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think this is such a strong and amazing example of how, you know, you can work together as equals on par for this sort of greater good that we sort of like, I mean, we rise above competition, we rise above restrictions, fears, everything to make sure that we make it happen. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Thank you for being here with us in the room in Stockholm, and to all those of you watching online, thank you so much for tuning in.